Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Folks, welcome to another show of the Oregon Voters Digest. Well, George, I was a little slow coming out. Initially, we've been around together for quite some time. But this is a historical moment at this point in time. We've got a new form of government here in the city of Portland. We got a new form of national government within our country. And I tell you, it's going to be some exciting time. And it's going to be, it's as if to say, it's going to take us all to come out with those issues that we've always been concerned with here in the city of Roses. The city of Roses, you've heard that before. The city of Roses, you heard about the swamp. You read about the swamp, and normally that was pretty well dictated from the national perspective up in Washington D.C. That type of thing. But anyway, we'll get more and more into it as we go along. But what we're going to do this time around, we're going to spend some time under this new form of government that we're going to be living in. This new time where we're looking for a better work. I mean, we got all kinds of things to talk about. And we're fortunate to have here a son, a gentleman, his son who's been around for quite some time, but his dad and I, at one point in time, was one of my co-hosts. He was a co-host. Jim Leuenberg, you might have remember Jim. Jim was running for office on a number of occasions, and like me, and we did a lot of things. And I want you to know something about Jim's special thing about his involvement with community. Jim Leuenberg and I, when the custodians here, the largest group of custodians for public schools here in the state of Oregon, which was Portland, Oregon, when they were fired. And they lost all their jobs. A lot of the guys, the oldest, very diverse group, but the bottom line, solid as a rock, these custodians. And Jim basically gave his time. He gave his time at no cost to represent the custodians. And it was just some exciting moments. We had some exciting moments. We've gone to the Supreme Court. We've done all kinds of things, aspect of it. But he was there. But about a lot of other things. We used to talk about all kinds of things. I mean, we can go on and on. In fact, if you look at the archives of the Oregon Voters Digest from late, and as you know, I've been here, probably the longest person sitting up here at Open Signal right now. But the bottom line is that Jim was with us. I mean, he was a beautiful guy. And unfortunately, he passed away not too long ago. But guess what? We rejuvenated the name big time with his son, and he's here with me today, John. John is right here. John is right here, and he is going to be with me during these times because the brand now is the people are speaking. John, in all due respect, and he knows this, his father and I, that's basically what we represented. We represented the people. We represented the people, not the bureaucrats, not the politicians. In all due respect, we defined those entities from the standpoint as employees that we employed, whether it be through an election process or get appointed or this, that, and the other. But the fact of the matter is, all elected officials are employees of the people because this is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We would always state that, but a lot of times people wouldn't think about that way. It was always, in fact, those who were elected to office or played politics and whatever, basically were speaking for us. Only us and not listening to what we, the people.
They should be.
That's right. You see what I'm saying? They should be doing it.
Yes.
But guess what? That's what we're going to do, and that's why I've got John here, John Leuenberger, his son. So he's going to be here with me, and we're going to take you guys through the swamp because I tell you that chain sitting on that stopper. You know what I mean? I tell you, I couldn't pull it as far as I, but now I know I can pull it. And we was going to pull that stopper, drain that swamp. It's starting right now. And we got both forms of government right now that represents the people from a national perspective and a local perspective. And we're going to focus on Portland, Oregon, because this was, in fact, the city of Portland. It was the living room. Mm-hmm. It was a living room for the state of Oregon, for that matter. And so we're going to be talking about all the issues as it impacts. In fact, the issues are pretty well fixed. the pocketbook for sure, the homeless situation, and you can put everything in those two categories, because whether it be the drugs thing and this, that, and the other, it's associated with the. So we're going to keep it very simple for you, and we're going to communicate with you in common sense kinds of terms, because it's going to take us all. It's going, as they say, the village. It takes a village, if you will. It takes a village to raise a child, but it's going to take a village to get us back to where we want to be.
I think the people have spoken pretty loudly with this current election.
Yes.
That they're tired of the way things have been.
Yes.
The things have been generally not going the way of the people. The people haven't, while we've elected those in charge, we have had a hard time telling them or having them do what we want them to do.
Yes, exactly.
They've kind of been on their own, and they've acted as if what we have to say doesn't matter because they're in the positions, right? But I think that now with this the changes that we have in the government, in the city of Portland, in the national race, has been profound. There has been a shift. I think enough people are kind of tired of the old way, and they want to go back to some semblance of normalcy. We the people want to be heard. We want to be able to dictate how the government runs, how the government funds are spent, and what issues are so important to us. Especially in Portland, we have homelessness, we have drug addiction. Those are two issues that need to be addressed and need to be addressed quickly. We've allowed it to spiral out of control ever since the pandemic. And Measure 110 was an attempt to fix that, but failed miserably. Measure 110, I'm someone who actually voted for Measure 110 because I liked the idea that instead of getting people arrested for their open drug use, they would be able to get some help. They would get a fine, and then they'd be asked to go and participate in drug addiction or recovery programs. Didn't happen.
And there's a reason. We're going to discuss that.
Yeah.
But I want you to get that introductory. I want you to give us this introduction, and then we're going to just start hit those points.
Well, I mean, as Bruce so nicely stated, my father is a very political man. I myself, I remember coming to this studio 20 odd years ago with him.
Wow.
Visiting Bruce and hearing Bruce and him speak along with others. It looked a little different than it does now, but that's okay. And I remember coming in, and I remember being on the show, and at that time I was super, excited because, hey, I get to be on TV, right?
How old were you then at that time?
Around 12 years old.
Yep. That's right.
Now I'm 32, and I'm starting to enter into the political arena. I'm starting to make my voice known. For a number of years, I born and raised in the greater Portland area. My mother born and raised in Portland. My father came to Portland from Boise, and I love this state. I love it very much. I moved away for almost 10 years to the state of Utah, and I kind of took a backseat in the politics. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. It was a mess. It's a mess, isn't it?
Right. That's right.
But now, as I've seen what's going on, as I've witnessed it, and as I've felt inside, it's important for people like me, not just me, but people like me, to start speaking their mind. Things are broken. And they need to be fixed. And so hopefully through this avenue and other avenues, we're able to fix it. We're able to bring the people together because we're stronger together than we are divided. And I think that there's been a major push to divide the people, to make it polarizing opposites. And we are so much stronger when we come together, when we show each other love, realize that we're all on this earth together. We're not mortal enemies, and we're supposed to be helping one another. That's what it's all about.
All right, let's begin.
Yeah.
Let's begin. In fact, let's begin with the top, if you will. Let's talk to the issue of the national politics.
Okay.
Okay. Let's talk about the recent election, if you will, from a national perspective, and identify certain aspects of it. In terms of what it was saying during that particular time and who was running that whole show.
Okay.
And in all due respect, it was the politicians. It wasn't the people. The people were quiet. I mean, it was such a divide between they will use the certain terms that were broadcast, if you will, through the visual means. They used the parties, for instance, the Republican Party and the Democrat. They didn't talk about all the other entities, but there was one that was just kind of like a side note. It was called independence.
Right.
And in many ways, many of those independents were from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party.
On both
They're
sides.
just basically taking their shingles and moving, putting it up on the other end of it. But they were there, but not in an outspoken way. You know what I mean? And so there was no sense of control or management from the people, from the politician's standpoint.
Right.
No, well, they were in charge, so to speak, in their own mind. But from the people's standpoint, the voting public was such that there was no direction. I'm just throwing something on the table.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of saying they just didn't feel comfortable in identifying themselves in terms of what those issues, because those issues were couched in that particular arena with the people.
Yeah, well, I tend to agree. I think that I don't know if it was a fear of speaking up or what, but there was definitely a holding back of opinions and ideas. And I think that's still a little bit on the table, but I think people, with the trend of the national stage, people are a little more outspoken now. Well, I mean, I've seen on social media, people are outspoken on both sides.
Yeah. I think that fear, that fear thing. We're thinking about people might have been working with someone, working for someone, if you will, thinking about their job. They might be thinking this way, and when gee, I do this, and then I've got to think about my pocketbook. You got me?
It definitely has an impact. I work in a sector of I work in manufacturing, and people in at least my line of work tend to lean more conservative, but no one was talking about it because of, I think, what you're saying. We're afraid to say something about it, because what if we don't have a job after we do voice our opinions? And it's a real fear, because people are living paycheck to paycheck right now. They need the money that they're getting from their positions. But I think now some conservatives feel a little more like a breath of fresh air, or like a burden has been lifted off of their shoulders, because of the way that the election trended, I should say. But I mean, we should all be able to speak our opinions one way or another.
Well, isn't that what the Constitution says?
Oh, the Constitution.
That's exactly what it talks about. A government of the people, by the people, for the Constitution. And all of a sudden, now it's coming back on the table. See, and people need to know that. They need to read it. In fact, hopefully we'll get within our educational system, if you will, early on. You know what I'm saying? Early on to bring up the young folks. You know what I mean? Through that whole K1 through 12. I mean, get it on the table and educate folks about what's the definition of the Constitution.
Well, I do remember actually learning about the Constitution and other historical events when I went through school. Granted, I graduated in 2010, and I just don't think that's being taught to children now. I think that we've gone away from, and I'm not heavily involved in the public education system, but I think that our educators have tended to go away from the teaching of the Constitution or the teaching of the Bill of Rights, or well, certain amendments they teach, but others they shy away from. It should be an all for nothing. We need to understand where this country came from, the oppressive nature of the British, and how the people, George Washington and other constitutional founders, found that they could no longer stand for the oppression, the tyranny that was in place. And that's how we got the Constitution. That's how we got the Declaration of Independence. They were sick and tired of tyranny ruling their lives. They got together, and by all means, they did not all agree, right? There were people from the left, from the right, in the middle. They all got together, and they admit that God had a hand in the writing of the Constitution, that they could feel a spirit within them as they worked together, left, right, center. They worked together even though they didn't agree, right? They didn't have to agree, but they worked together to bring about one of the best systems that has ever been implemented in the history of the world. I'm a firm Christian believer, and I have a firm belief that the Founding Fathers, when they wrote that Constitution, it was divinely inspired. I think that our God wants us to be free and to be able to worship, or not just worship, but practice whatever form of government that we choose, and this is the right one. I mean, if you look at it, the executive, the judicial, the legislative, they're all checks and balances. There's that way no one group can get above the other. And if we allow one group to get too much power, they have the other two to put them in check.
There were checks and balances.
We need that. We very much need that. If we didn't have it, we would... we'd be in trouble.
Yeah, in fact, just a couple of things about some of the things that you were sharing with them in regards to, like today, it's not being taught. During my time, it was
huge
being taught, and it was kind of the subject matter of the class was social studies.
Yeah.
See, they called it social studies.
We had civics as well.
And civics, right. That was the next tier. But it was still included.
Yeah.
Got me? And the other thing, just as a reminder, I can still remember when I was young enough, I think it was grade, in fact, 6th, 7th, up in that area, I can still remember raising the flag. I can still remember after we raised the flag, we'd go into the classroom before we started anything. We stood up and recited the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
We did that in elementary school as well.
And did a prayer.
Yeah. Oh well, a prayer was lacking from my education.
That's right.
System.
That's what I'm saying. See?
Yeah.
But we had to come up with a prayer. See.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very interesting piece. And I think early on we knew the whole issue of that issue that we were suffering with, which is kind of huge still now.
Yeah.
And the whole issue of race. But the bottom line is that during my particular time, we knew who Lincoln was.
Yeah,
we knew about that history, but Lincoln, and then it stayed there for a bit, and then it started as a result of how he was, well, assassinated, whatever you might call it.
Yeah,
basically. Then all of a sudden it's sort of watering down, but beforehand, it was included. And I can still remember the whole issue of ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps.
Yeah,
got me, and that was a very interesting piece, and it was a good piece aspect of it. I was part of that when I went to school, so I was part of ROTC.
Yeah,
you got me, in a southern school at that matter. In fact, it was the first ROTC in the state of Oregon. I'm not in the state of Texas.
Texas, yeah.
For African Americans.
Wonderful.
But at that point in time, it wasn't African Americans. It was just Americans, and the families and whatever. But so things were progressing in a real neat way. It was a village, so to speak. And so And so here we are today. It's like saying we're going back, and we have to go back and revisit that and bring this back up to the table in a holistic way.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just throwing that out there too, because I think it's important. We are a melting pot. I mean, and that's
Very much so.
even when you start getting into this whole issue about the illegals and whatever. The whole idea of this country, there was no such thing as illegals back in those days.
Right.
It was just folks that were just kind of congregating in this one area because they said, look here, we don't like the oppression and this, that, and the other. Whatever. But the definition of the culture was called Americans.
Yes.
Not this, not this.
A distinguishment between what the color of your skin was.
That's right. It's all your pedigree for that matter.
Right.
We were all called Americans.
Yes.
And then we just started slowly but surely. Folks started going back to the original cultures, if you will, the DNA and whatever. So that's something else that hopefully we're gonna because of this moment that we're living in at this point in time, and now we're now realizing that hey, we got to go back and pick and choose. There's no such thing as old folks, you know.
Well, with the end of the Civil War, we were supposed to end racism.
That's right. Yeah,
that was the whole point of the Civil War.
That's the whole deal.
We're supposed to progress as a nation, forward, not backwards. And I mean, I grew up thankfully in a family where race wasn't. It wasn't a polarizing topic in our home. I mean, my father and you worked very well together.
Oh, very much so.
My father represented, because we're from Lake Oswego, and during his last few years of work, he did a lot of work out in the Dalles. Helping to serve a population that was desperately needing an outside lawyer from people like to think of Lake Oswego as a big town, you know. He went and served the Hispanic population of the Dalles.
I remember that.
And he did a lot of good work, and he gave them a fair shot out in the Dalles because they were not getting a fair shot. They were being the prejudice was rampant out in the Dalles.
And that was Jim.
He didn't care who you were.
Oh, gee whiz, I tell you. And all due respect, I started off at that introduction piece talking about the custodians.
Yes.
The majority of the custodians here in the Portland Metropolitan Schools were black. Okay.
Yeah.
And boy, I tell you, he was there day in and day out. We did. In fact, we got all those people back. We got their jobs back.
Yes.
And in all due respect, they brought that was kind of like a part and parcel of the illegals aspect. Right? They brought those folks and took the jobs. The unions, the unions allowed them to join their union, even recognizing the fact that these folks were illegal.
Yeah.
And then and that was supposed to be the peoples, the laborers, if you will, when you start thinking about unions. That's the way the definition of it initially. Today it's a whole different ballgame. But the fact of the matter is that those are the times that we were fighting for their existence and re-existence. Those folks were being laid off and this, that, and the other, and so they couldn't realize the retirements and things of that nature. But we got all that back because of your dad, Jim.
Well, today I was looking up some interesting information about Multnomah County and former Vanport and everything. Vanport used to be 40% African Americans. It was the history of this area, the Portland metro area, is rich in culture. It is a melting pot. Now we're not a melting pot on the terms of New York City, mind you, but we're still a melting pot out here. There's a lot of cultures out here, and the sooner we can get along, the sooner we can put aside the color of our skin and just see each other as people, or I like to say children of God, right? As soon as we see each other as that, we can move forward a lot.
But bringing that point back, I'm glad you brought that other point up from the standpoint of saying that let's say part of the population of the Vanport piece was, let's say, 40% African American, but realistically, that wasn't the case.
Okay.
What I mean by that is that it was during World War II, and it was the shipbuilding place, shipbuilding, and so people were coming in from all parts, a labor force come from all parts of the country, if you will, okay? And basically all together, and that's why, and they basically housed themselves right off the Columbia River, so to speak, and it was called Vanport, Vancouver, Washington, and the city of Portland.
Yeah.
Okay, so Vanport aspect of it, and it was the largest city in the state of Oregon.
Yeah.
Okay, where in terms of its location, and its population featured everybody, and in all due respect, now check this out. In all due respect, the majority were not black.
Okay.
Okay, the majority were whites.
Yeah.
Americans. Okay, they were just all Americans.
Americans.
And,
yes.
and they even had some Asians in there, and in fact there were some intermarriages. You know, people were just married. Kids were going to kind of the same school. There was sort of a dividing line to a certain degree after Lincoln left, if you will.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that it was a melting pot. It was an American group of folks who came over to work in this particular area. Okay.
Yeah.
Got me. And then when the war was over and the shipbuildings were gone, if you will, all of a sudden a lot of folks were going back to where they were, their original location, so to speak, and some stayed here, and a few of those blacks stayed here, not a majority. A few of those, and then basically the whole issue of racism or whatever you might call it, they were kind of like restricted to only living in a certain area, and it just was just a tip of the Portland piece. Yeah. See, but the point I'm making is that it kind of got into a situation because of the location of some of those blacks, associated with Vanport aspect of it. They kind of sort of identified it as if that was the black community. No, it was not the black community. If had they left off the whole issue of race, they would have been assimilated right in the city of Portland.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And they stayed there in Northeast Portland. But then all of a sudden, naturally, when you start thinking about the breakup in terms of the definition of how the definition of all residents here in the city of Portland, they all have addresses. They have legislative districts. Yeah. They have city and county, all that other good stuff. They have addresses. Yeah. The only entity right out of the Vanport, basically, they didn't have an address. There was an opportunity to make a legislative district out of it, right off the Vanport. See, then it would have been a segment. Yeah. And in all due respect, it wasn't. Let's say if it wasn't even a majority within a district. Okay. The fact of the matter is, but if they said black Americans were there, a number of the residents were black Americans or African Americans, but the more progressive one, black Americans or like white Americans or Asian Americans, whatever, along that particular line. But they didn't do that. And I'm here to say, here we go, Jim and I. We worked together on this particular piece, and when I wasn't here and I was with the Portland Observer newspaper, because I had a brand, something in the front of my name, right? Just like the Oregon Voter, front of my name. Vic Attia was governor of the state of Oregon at the time. Okay. Got together with Vic, we talked about the same story aspect of it, and he was in charge, so to speak. He understood what that was all about, and we put together District 18. Okay. District 18, where we basically carved out, it was a congressional deal. Every 10 years they go through this process aspect of it. And with time and some Vic got the deal. And Republicans were up there during that particular time. And as a result, we had District 18, where a number of the residents, a majority number of the black Americans, were living in that area. Good. It had an address. And that address initially was Northeast Portland. Yeah. Or the black community. But hey, it was always beyond the airport, the Northeast address. Well, that's not an address. And when you put an address, there's a certain sense of responsibility and pride. And pride and this, that, and the other. But unfortunately, guess what? There was an effort on the other side of the fence, right? When they basically did everything they could. So, and in all due respect, it just happened to have been the Democratic Party that did this. So the time it came back, when it came back to the table, that following 10 years, the redistricting, they cut it off. And that today we don't have. There's not an address, and then we're still keeping this continuing situation about divide with culture and race.
Well, hopefully we can get this, with the new form of government,
Yes,
right?
there you go.
With
There
this
you
new
go.
form of
That's what we're
government,
talking about right
that
now.
they, we have our 4 districts
Yeah,
now,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
But it's up for redistricting in 2030.
Yes,
So we
yes.
got 6 long years
Well,
to see.
we'll be working on it. We're going to be working on it.
We're gonna be working on it,
we're doing
yes.
this thing. Yes, we're going to work on that one.
But we'll have an opportunity to hopefully
Yes.
give those people a voice or a
Yes.
district to be represented from, because with the new form of government, which I'm not as familiar with as you are, but with it being voted into or being put into place now in the 2024-2025 election.
Right.
But it was voted on in 2022. We've got those 4 districts with three council members per
Right,
district,
right.
and the removal of the mayor from
As far as responsibility, yeah.
as far as responsibility, he's an executive now, right?
Right.
And he gets to hire an administrator.
Yes.
But having 12 people, which is a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. But like I said, under the present form of government,
Yeah.
the people within the city of Portland were treated as if they were employees.
Yeah. I mean, what
And the elected officials in most cases were pretty well determined by money.
Oregon having one of the highest tax rates for income in the country is definitely, we're treated as employees. How much can you give to us, the elected officials, to be able to do what you're telling us to do, but not really telling us to do? We're going to tell you what to do. I think that is very important to understand. Is we do have one of the highest income tax rates in the nation.
Oh yeah.
And where does that tax money go?
Yeah, that's right.
Where's it going? Because we have problems with the homeless. We have problems with drug addiction. We have politicians who make poor decisions. What was it, a year or 2 ago, when they were trying to work on the fentanyl crisis, right? I don't remember the woman, but someone put forth a plan to buy the homeless paraphernalia.
Yeah.
Remember that?
And show them how to use it.
And show them how to use it, right?
Don't do respect. Just be honest with it. It was the chair of the county.
And they
Chair Peterson, but it was,
she or was it a woman? She put forth that effort, and then there was public outrage.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Because no one asked for this. No one told them to do this. And when they finally said, okay, wait, we're not going to do this. They had already spent $80,000 of taxpayer money.
You mean 80 million? Maybe?
I hope not 80 million.
The mindset.
They reported 80,000.
Right.
Yeah, but the mindset was let's spend as much as possible on straws and on tinfoil.
Yeah, we talked about that here, by the way.
I'm sure you did.
Oh yeah,
it's insane.
It was a crazy deal. And like you said, and we're going to naturally speak a little bit more about that piece because things are changing over there too.
Good.
You know what I mean? And so, but from a historical standpoint, we're getting there, and I'm glad you're bringing it back in. And that's the beauty, by the way, of interviewing John here the way I am right now, because Jim and I would do the same thing. He would lead the charge on something, and then I'd be there to do this, and we'd go back.
Rein us in.
That's right. Got to bring you in.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Got to bring you in.
Just a little bit.
And that's the beauty of this relationship that we're trying to establish now. And I should make another point too at this point in time to those of us who are not as familiar as we are about what we're trying to do. That's why we're taking it one step at a time.
Yeah.
We're making sure that this format represents the people.
Yes.
It represents the people because it is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And believe me, I've been here for quite some time, but the majority of the time when we were reacting, we were a small minority. It was just he and I sitting up here aspect of it, and in most cases, the entities that were controlling all of the entities were in most cases, the business folks, the money. And so people, these employees, the employers were basically hiring these individuals who were elected to office because it took money. It takes money to run a campaign.
It does.
It takes money.
It does.
But so that's a problem. But
that is, yeah, very much so.
That's a problem. And when you start thinking about one of the other major issues was the pocketbook that we're talking about today, and in most cases the economics, you got to have some money. It's got to be coming from somewhere, because we all have to pay rent, even though we
do.
Even though you're an employee, we're residents, we still pay rent. Employers pay double rent. Let's say it's an entity of its own, and we need that entity because that's the area where they work to get the monies to pay the rent, and from a residential standpoint. So that's important too. So we're not trying to be we're not anti-business by no means.
Oh, business small businesses are the lifeblood of this country, and they have been for a number of years. Right. But it's the big corporations that are kind of, and they're important. They help us to stay employed or to be able to pay our rent. But I'm a big proponent of small businesses. I think they're the lifeblood of this country. I think you can find economic security in small business, and we can do a lot of good stuff with a small business.
A lot of times, but at the same time, when you start thinking about the elected individuals, in most cases, big business tend to identify with that situation.
Ever since Citizens United.
Yes.
Ever since Citizens United and the Supreme Court's decision to rule that big corporations are individuals, very much so.
Yes. I mean, that's the way it's been. But that's part of the economics of this country, for that matter. Aspect of it. They still have to be retained, but they too have to be a part and parcel of a solution, if you will, bringing back the kind of environment that we, the people, are in need of.
One would hope, yes.
Yeah. See, so that's a very, very important piece aspect of it. And like you said, when you were bringing up this new form of government with the city aspect of it, now that's why I'm saying we're going to dedicate quite a bit of time on that piece. In fact, I'll share this with the folks there now. We'll probably be a number of shows, because once they start here in this major city,
January 2nd,
Portland, Oregon aspect of it, they've got some cleanup work to do. One specific area, I'll share right off the bat. They've got three, as you say, three commissioners, 3 persons per district aspect of it. So now, one of the concerns is that having access to these old individuals, they need to know that they are employees. Got me? And secondly, they need to know their responsibility of turf. Got me? So you got this block, right?
Yep.
That particular district, and you got 3 people. Well, under the some of the things they've been having discussion-wise, they rehab the downtown city hall to house all of these folks. That's ridiculous. They represent districts, okay?
Live in the district.
Not just the business in downtown.
Right. Yes.
And it's okay, but that's the way it is. But now I'm saying what they need to do now is that if they want to retain that deal for a minute, but it's our choice, we've got to basically say, okay, fine, we need to send those people to those districts, if you will.
Yes.
All those 3, let's say 3 commissioners for district number 2, they should divide the district into thirds.
Yes.
Thirds. Give them their address.
They're earning taxpayer money, right?
Yes.
At what I think $150,000 a pop.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
right.
$1.8 million in taxpayer money that they're taking in. And if they're not in their districts, if they're not dividing it equally between the 3 of them, what are they doing?
Yes.
They're taking our money.
Yes.
They're supposed to be helping the people.
Yes.
Therefore, they need to do something in the district that they're assigned.
Well, respond to the issues that are on the table to begin with.
Yes.
You know, if they've got, because homelessness might not be as more of an issue in, let's say, district number 2 than district number 3,
very much
number
so.
4. So the whole idea is that in order to understand that means that those individuals who are going to be for that particular district are going to have to be basic. They need to know, if you will, the definition,
the demographics of their
area, and then not the whole area, all 3. No. We divide the thing into thirds. Got me?
Yes.
And then we're really into parks.
Well, yeah, we are.
So
they're beautiful. We need them.
So as far as I'm concerned, the meeting place for each of those districts, those areas, that district should be within those park facilities, because they're right there in the district. Plus the fact they have to live in the district anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So consequently, people will have an address. They'll know where they are.
We should know where our public officials are.
That's right.
We should know we're paying for it
That's
all,
right, that's
so
right.
we should know exactly
That's right.
where they are,
That's right.
where they work, what hours they
That's
work.
right, that's right.
Hold them accountable.
Exactly,
If we're not holding them accountable, they're just going to do what they've been doing for the past how long?
Exactly.
They're just going to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to keep squandering taxpayer money, and they're going to keep benefiting themselves.
Well, as you say, now check it out. That ain't gonna happen this time around. My point.
hope not.
What I mean by yes, as far as I'm concerned, they are going to be treated as employees. If you hear what I'm saying, got me? Because we know where they are, their addresses. The people are saying, hey, look here. That's exactly how the national politics got to the point. People just got fed up. Initially, it was the fact that one component wasn't going to win. And the other point, man, and we went through that whole process, but we were all we didn't know what to do. We were afraid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at the results, the people spoke.
Yes.
The people spoke, and so now it gives us something where it's not you've taken all the politics out of it now. Now it is the Constitution. It is the people aspect of it, and so I think that's going to be just great. But like I said, we got some finishing things that we need to fix up. So I think this first round, this first go around, and in most cases it will probably be it would be looking like 2 years, because 2 of the districts have been identified with 4 years on the job.
Oh.
Yeah, 4 years, and then they got 2, and then the others are 2 years.
Interesting.
So you got 2 4 years and 2 2 years. Isn't that something?
Interesting way of doing it.
You understand what I'm saying? And when you think about it, you look at it from a monetary standpoint. When you think about district number 4, that's inclusive of the city.
Yeah.
And when you district number 2, that's in district of here in the Northeast Corridor,
Okay.
i.e. part of the black community, and this, that, and the other, and a large population. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And the others are just outlining. One is a little closer to Gresham, and the others across the river. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
In Northwest Portland, that's number 3. See?
Yeah.
So, and then you start saying, well, wait, why did they do it that way to a certain degree? Well, you got a controlling element. This is sitting in the 4. In all due respect, the business community, okay, fine. Let's say right for them. We need those jobs. They're concerned. They're trying to keep those things. They're trying to keep those things in place because those are money makers. That's very good. But right now they're not making money. So consequently, these folks, when they divide, so when they sort of decided where to go, the ruling class at that point in time was business. Say, look, we need the time. We want to make sure that we're here for the transition because we got to have that economic system at base here within this city, which is true.
Yeah.
Which is true, and that's good. And then in 2, most of the federal funds went into the Northeast Corridor because of the minority piece.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then the key there is that we don't want to lose the money.
No.
And so and we want to pretty well still maintain some sense of control because it impacted the state too. Because all of the various diversity aspect of monies basically went into that. So that was the rationale for the 4 years, because now they're going to have an opportunity to be here for a longer period of time and have some sense of control.
Yeah.
Because now you start thinking about the vote of the entire city council. You got to have a majority vote.
7-5.
75, and the mayor, has to still be.
And the mayor gets that emergency vote if they can't come to a conclusion.
Exactly.
I'm kind of excited to see what Keith Wilson has to do. Right?
Yes.
I've already seen on social media that he's been out on the streets with his team cleaning up areas of Portland.
Right.
It's important for us to have a mayor who is actively involved in the ongoings of the homeless crisis in the city of Portland. Mm-hmm. And it seems like Keith Wilson's going to do that. Now, he has a very ambitious plan, 12-month plan that's going to cost roughly $25 million. I would like to see what exactly, other than saying we need to increase the shelters, overnight and day shelters. I want to see some fruit here.
Well, you make a good point, because in all due respect, you're right, and he's new to the game.
He is.
You know, in all due respect, I got to say this in regards to Portland. We eat mayors.
We sure do.
We eat them all the time, and a lot of times we eat city council folks. My point is, we have some sense of control by, even if it's a business element at this point in time.
Yeah.
But it's going to change to a certain degree. But still, there's going to be some sense of control. The people are going to be very much involved. They're going to expect certain things. Now, people living, the residential folks who are living there, not as much as involved and of concern in the homeless problem as opposed to the downtown corridor.
The businesses, yes.
Businesses, you see.
Well, the businesses that have been fleeing.
That's right.
They've been fleeing out of Portland.
Right.
They can't do business here.
Right.
Right after the election, how many different businesses boarded up their windows for fear of what the repercussions of the election would be.
Right.
If we don't get a hold on helping those businesses succeed by cleaning up the homeless population, and that sounds kind of crass, but we need to give them a better form of living situation than what they're currently living. Tents on the street, it's just not doing it. Allowing them to use the bathroom anywhere on the street, it's not helpful. No one wants to go downtown. I'm someone who, unless I absolutely have to come to downtown Portland, I'll go anywhere else at this point because I don't like travailing through homeless encampments for fear of what might happen to me. I've had a number of times when I've been downtown going somewhere with friends where I walked in a certain area and the homeless have approached me and said, would you please not come in front of my home? And I'm like, but this is a public street. This is a sidewalk. There needs to be a better location for these people to go, and if it's a shelter or if it's permanent housing, the city of Portland needs to step up and figure out how to do that. And they got to work with the county of Multnomah, which it sounds like from the research that I've done, they can't work well together. They kind of butt heads, the city of Portland and the county of Multnomah. But they need to come together and figure it out. We need this taken care of. Portland used to be a beautiful, thriving city. You can speak to it better than I can. But, I remember in high school, the homeless population was there, but it wasn't as bad as it is now. And I'm sure you remember a time when there was no homeless population.
But you were there because, in all due respect, you enjoyed the parades.
Yeah.
You enjoyed sitting by the water there, right off the deal.
Absolutely.
That kind of a deal. You enjoyed going to the various parks with the so-called Rose Festival parade.
Yes.
And then the Roses competition. There was all kinds of neat things because it was kind of like a living room, recreational kind of an area, as if to say at the end of the week, you know what I mean? You look forward to going downtown and walking and you know what I'm saying, and eating on the deal, and throwing a blanket out, and bringing the animals out, riding the bicycles. They had all kinds of races and all kinds of things of that nature. And in all due respect, they had the so-called checks and balances of all of those things, because take for instance the parade piece. If you wanted to basically have a parade and talk to whatever, whether it be a parade talking to an issue or this, that, and the other, the process was you had to go to city hall and pick up a permit. You had to fill a form. You had to make sure they was insured. You got my point? So that was taken care of. You made sure that security was there. That was all part of a process. The books. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't there anymore. See, so consequently, those elected officials, the people who were supposed to be taking care of that issue, was not making sure that these folks were picking up the form, letting the people know ahead of time whether or not this is something that would tolerate based on blah blah blah. You see what I mean? A process. We don't have a form anymore. And I think about as you say, when they first started the deal about putting tents on the streets and this, that, and the other, they started inviting some of the few homeless. Basically went to City Hall and put some tents right there in the front there and started sleeping right there in the front of City Hall,
the courthouse.
And then all of a sudden we had a change of mayorship, and a new mayor came in, And then the folks that were sitting up there, he basically was a little bit more aggressive and said, well, no, we're not going to allow this. And so guess what? Some of the ones, now they had educated themselves, well, gee, this is a pretty good deal. Well, we're going to go and hit the mayor's house first. So they went to his house and put tents in his yard.
Yep.
And so all of a sudden, it opened up the whole city. Then all of a sudden, they said, well, look, we want to go downtown. And then they went right into the park, right across from the city,
Yep.
and had this big deal, drugs and the whole 9 yards. And then law enforcement couldn't do anything. You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden, they had to become social workers. They had to basically handle the whole deal. So
Yep.
we're talking about this, but like John is saying, you know, I'm lacking with the way John is coming from, because he was living during that particular time. But in most cases, we've got outlining cities that were not involved in the process, whether it be Oregon City, whether it be Lake Oswego, Washington County, and we were sitting right here, the living room. Mm-hmm. But then it would spill over.
It would. It's starting to spill over. I mean, let me just speak to when I lived in Utah. So,
Yes.
when I lived in Utah, in Salt Lake area, I started very. There was really little to no homeless when I first moved out there, and over the years, the homeless population started to move in, and the people of Salt Lake started looking towards Portland as how is Portland doing
Yes,
it? How is Portland doing it? And it's like wait, but Portland's not doing well at it. So why are we looking to Portland to solve this problem? They started camping in front of the courthouse.
yes.
They started living there's parts of Salt Lake City. Granted, I haven't lived there for a number of years, but you cannot go into some of the parks in Salt Lake City, just like you couldn't do it here in Portland,
Right, exactly.
because the homeless are rampant and they're getting high on whatever drug it is they're getting high on, and it's a fear for public safety. It's so I saw it both here in Portland, but also in Salt Lake. The thing about Salt Lake is, though, it gets very cold, and sleeping on the streets when it's below freezing is difficult, and people will die. And so I think there was a sense of urgency that the city of Portland maybe doesn't have, because people can get a heater or get a strong enough sleeping bag and they can live, but very rarely do we see below freezing temperatures here in the city of Portland. So I think that's one of the reasons why the homeless have kind of flocked to Portland, is it's temperate, they can live in it for the majority of the year without any problems.
And then think about it now. I think we're talking this business right now, in which we will be getting even more and more involved with, because it's part of the solution aspect of it. I'd say the majority of those homeless folks were homeowners at one point in time, or they were renters.
Yeah.
They had jobs.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we open up the gates for folks just to come into this country, got me, without going through the process over there. They wasn't filling in the form.
Yeah.
And right? Got me? And so all of a sudden we came up with a new piece from the standpoint, a new definition of the labor force. All of a sudden they're doing jobs that other folks don't want to do.
Yeah.
And that opened up the floodgate.
Yes, it does, and I think that speaks to the American work ethic, right?
Right.
Sometimes we do things that we don't want to do.
Right.
It's part of life.
Right.
We have to do things that we don't want to do.
Right.
Now, if we have people coming who want to do those jobs over the people that don't, and they're willing to do it for less money under the table, that's who's going to get hired. Should we be hiring them? Probably not.
No.
We should be but I think we've grown a little comfortable in our circumstances here in the United States, especially in the Northwest. We're used to the luxuries that have come as time has developed, as we've gone away from the industrial type of lifestyle that we used to have to a more economical or prosperous lifestyle. I mean, you know, how many malls are in the state of in the Portland metro area?
Exactly.
It's a luxury.
Yes. Well, you know, John, and you hit that point in regards to, we got kind of like lackadaisy. and if to say, and the lackadaisy comes from the fact that now all of a sudden the person is not required to fill out the form to do to do this. So basically, say that you can't throw butts on the streets. You got me? You can't do this, or you can't do this. Only from the standpoint of it maintaining. We got all of these individuals. You got to have some sense of
no oversight.
No oversight.
No oversight tends to lead to
That's
the
right.
problems that
That's
we're
right.
facing
That's
right now.
That's right.
But that goes both ways. There's no oversight from the government because the people aren't overseeing the government.
Right.
And so it's time for us to step up and start overseeing the government, overseeing those people who are in charge that we put in place.
Right.
We need to make sure that they're doing their jobs.
That's right.
If they're not doing their jobs, let's recall them.
Right.
Let's pull them out of the position that we gave them.
Right.
They have an opportunity here to step up into these positions.
Right.
And if they don't step up, we can take the power back from them.
Right.
And we need to.
Keep going. I'm going to make just a real quick. Just keep talking to the.
Oh,
to the
my
audience
goodness.
here. Because that way I'm going to make sure that I get our time deal here.
Absolutely.
So you just keep talking to the phone. Mention a few points about as you were saying about defining government, the definition of government. Because it is of the people, by the people, and
For the people.
Right?
I mean, what is it? The Declaration starts with "we the people."
That's right.
Having, it's important for us as people to know that it is our job. It's our job to step up. It's our job to tell them what it is we want them to do. Having the people realize that the power is in their hands and not in the hands of the government, which seeks to take the power, is important for us to know as citizens. We are citizens. We are not subjects. As citizens, we have rights and responsibilities, and we need to step into those rights and responsibilities. Like I said, we are citizens and not subjects. If we let them continue to have or use the gross overreach that they have, we're failing ourselves. We're not just failing the community as a whole. We're failing ourselves.
Okay, that's looking good. This is community television, folks. I want you to know that too. And this is great. I mean, I tell you, without open signal, again, this is the people's forum.
Absolutely.
It's really people, which is another point I might share from the standpoint that under the normal, on our present communication, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yep.
It's a commercial type of deal. It's an ad thing.
Well, that's ABC, NBC,
they're all the
CBS,
same.
Fox.
We got to bring them back and to give up some of that time, if you will, to communicate with the public across the board.
Yeah.
You got me?
When you've got
Public
like
service.
8-minute segments and then 2.5 minute ad breaks, who's really speaking there?
And then normally it happens on weekends. It happens on weekends at the various talk shows and this, that, and the other. But bottom line, it's pretty well fixed in terms of what to reinforce what's already here that they are not fixing, as if to say they don't want it to get fixed.
Yeah.
I hate to put it that way. I hope that's the right language. But we're learning. We're learning at this point in time.
Yes, we are.
And that's why we're talking the way we're doing, folks. In all due respect, this is community television. That's exactly what it is.
It is.
It's community television, but it's the people's folk.
Yes.
And the people now have spoken that they are wanting to basically be the lead force now. They're not going to let this train just continue to run away. That's right. You understand what I'm saying? And so hopefully, any government now, we're not starting off with scratches, because the ink is still not. It's not dry.
It's not dry yet.
Under the way we were doing it, but people do recognize what it is. Okay, you got me on that particular line. So, at the end of the show, we'll continue it from this point on. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bruce.
And by George, I mean,
pleasure.
and just we'll say this. We'll use this particular show as far as a memorial.
Yes.
For your dad, Jim Lowenberger. Okay.
We lost him.